desk can now project New York City has elected Democrat Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani to be its next mayor. Now, he will become the first Muslim mayor of the city and its youngest in more than a century. Not really a surprise. I don't know why people were waking up in the last, 2.5 weeks. I think they should have woke up after the primary where he handily defeated Andrew Cuomo. But back to your analysis, because I think this is very key. I thought that Andrew ran a very lackluster campaign. I think taking 10 days off after Labor Day is unthinkable if you're a candidate. I think he spent way too much time out in the Hamptons, and he didn't have a message that resonated, and he still had a hangover of hatred for the time he was governor. That all worked against him.
I think there'll also be this debate if he had another week or 2 weeks, would that have been enough to close the gap? And I'm not sure, based on the numbers we're seeing right now. Cuomo got his act together in the last couple of weeks. He was doing a lot more interviews. He was out there. And, Sean, I will tell you, there's a reason why politicians spend a year in Iowa. They go out there to refine their message, to be able to answer every question on every topic possible and do it within 30 seconds' time. Cuomo was out of political talking shape, period. Now, he got his sea legs under him in the last couple of weeks and showed up on Fox many times, showed up on MSNBC and CNN, made himself much more available. But there'll be pieces written as to whether or not this was the right way to run a campaign. And if you had another week or 2 weeks' time, could you have closed the gap on Mamdani tonight? And that's a question we'll never know, Sean, but it'll certainly be talked about and written about.
Bill Hemmer, amazing coverage. We'll get back to you at the big board coming up. We are ready. Projection time. The Fox News decision desk can now project that Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill will, in fact, become the next Democratic governor of New Jersey. Now, Sherrill defeats Republican Jack Ciattarelli, whom President Trump endorsed in May. The GOP had hoped that Ciattarelli could deliver an upset after a very close loss 4 years ago. We're going to bring back Brett and Martha to get reaction to this. Brett, I'll go back to the numbers that I threw at Martha earlier. Nearly 1 million voter advantage, Democrat over Republican in that state. Nearly a 250,000 people in New Jersey left that state. That, that to me is a math problem for Republicans if they ever want to flip a state like New Jersey.
Always. And in a state like New Jersey, as Martha talked about, it is like Lucy and the football and Charlie Brown. I mean, there is this thought that maybe this is the time, and it changes the dynamic. And I will say there was a lot of optimism heading in for Jack Ciattarelli. But Mikey Sherrill had an advantage. She didn't perform well in the early debates. She was asked about sales tax and taxes overall. She said, I'm not going to answer that right now in a debate. And it became a big thing. Then there was the controversy over the cheating scandal at Annapolis. And it really stalled the campaign for a couple of weeks. In the final days, President Obama came in. She got a lot of support, and she started seeing early vote numbers tick up, according to her campaign. And, it's enough in that environment to pull out a blue state.
Yeah, you look at the urban centers in New Jersey, and she really ran up the vote. Essex County as well, places like Montclair, suburban areas outside of New York. She did very well with women voters. We saw the same thing with Spanberger in Virginia. Both of these candidates presented themselves as moderate women with military and CIA background. And so I think you're going to have Democrats looking at that model as something that is successful for them, Sean. And I would imagine that you're going to see them seek out candidates that reflect that. It's just very interesting to me when you look at President Trump's numbers in 2024 in New Jersey. Just 9 months ago, he was able to turn 5 counties in New Jersey solidly red. And those counties did not follow that pattern with Jack Ciattarelli. And it just raises a lot of questions about whether or not anybody but President Trump can move the ball in these kinds of places. Ciattarelli ran a very Trump-like campaign. He embraced him in the state of New Jersey. I think one of the questions that is going to continue to crop up are questions about the economy. President Trump is very popular across the country in most of the approval numbers, but these questions about the economy continue to be raised. And, I think that when you look at Hispanic areas and black parts of New Jersey as well, where he did not do the kind of numbers that we've seen from President Trump, it'll show areas where Republicans will need to do some work in the coming months before the midterm.
Yeah, affordability is the mantra, Sean. I mean, it's
Well,
the
let
mantra
me-
for Zohran Mamdani here in New York City.
You know, a couple of things to point out. Both of you make great observations. One, Trump is not on the ballot tonight. Somebody in the Chitterelli campaign determined that bringing Donald Trump into New Jersey, probably not a good idea, being a deep blue state that it is. Let me run through some numbers. I know, Martha, you know these numbers very well. The Tax Foundation, the people in New Jersey, those residents have the second highest overall tax burden in the entire country. They're 49th out of 50. That means the highest property taxes in the country. That means New Jersey has the fourth highest income tax in the country. They also have the highest corporate tax rate in the country. It went up again this year. 45 cents a gallon gas tax, again, among the highest in the country. State sales tax, among the highest in the country. You know, New Jersey has the highest inheritance tax of 16%. Florida has zero inheritance tax, much lower property taxes, no income taxes, and better, you know, weather on top of everything. But you know, better infrastructure on top of everything else. So, you know, it really says a lot to me. What does it say to you, Martha? I know you love New Jersey.
You're totally depressing me about all of the taxes that we have to pay in New Jersey. No, it's a terrible
I'm not trying to do that, but those numbers are insane.
Sean?
No, I mean, I don't know, you guys, but you know, it raises a question about why the argument that Chitterelli has been making that you want to lower taxes is not compelling enough for all of these New Jersey voters. I mean, it's a very obvious question. And then you have Zohran Mamdani, who is saying, well, we're just going to raise the corporate tax rate to match New Jersey. You know, so don't worry about it, because it's only going to be like New Jersey, which, as you point out, is the highest corporate tax rate in the country. But I don't know. I'm going to just be scrolling through the real estate pages here now, Sean, looking for a new place.
I think we can find you a place to do your show. I know a place. It's available, and you're welcome to use it. You'll do a great job wherever you are. Guys, stay right there. We're going to get back to you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else. We can now make a call. The Fox News decision desk can now project that Democrat Jay Jones will become Virginia's next attorney general, defeating the Republican incumbent, Jason Miyares. Now, in October, you may recall, Jones apologized for text messages that he had sent where he imagined putting 2 bullets to the head of the Speaker of the House of Commons and then wishing the death of that lawmaker's children and urinating on the grave. And it was even worse than that in this sense. There was no Democrat in Virginia, really, Brett and Martha, to bring you back. Martha, we'll go to you first, that was willing to condemn these remarks and distance themselves and suggest that he get out of that race. I found, you know, an assassination culture that we're living in, you know, how does somebody get away with that?
It's very scary. You know, the bar has obviously been lowered to a point that we never would have anticipated. I mean, think about the fact that Joe Biden once dropped out of a presidential race because there was an accusation that he had plagiarized a section of a speech, okay? And that derailed a presidential race back in the late 80s. So this is where we are now. You can threaten to kill people, to kill their children, to call them fascists, to say you want to see them die in their parents' arms. And this is allowed. This is acceptable. This isn't even something that forces the candidate to be so embarrassed and feel so terrible that they, you know, get up to that podium and say, you know what, I got to step aside. Obviously, that was a huge misjudgment on my part.
And then Abigail Spanberger is asked about it 4 times in a debate.
Yeah.
And doesn't say she's pulling back the endorsement. She's asked about it for several days on the campaign trail. It does sputter her campaign. She pulls out a win, but never really denounces or pulls back the endorsement of Jones. And here you have it. Now, you know, Democrats in Virginia are going to deal with that as well.
Top law enforcement official in the state.
I'm looking, Brett, at these numbers. I want your take on it. Winsome Sears lost. The bottom dropped out of her campaign. Now, that was picked up by my friends Robert Cahaly and Matt Towery. their last poll had her down by double digits. As you can see, if we can put up that number again in terms of Attorney General, it is a much tighter race. And obviously, Winsome Sears became a drag for Jason Miyares. Rather shocking in this case that Jones won this race to me, Brett. He did outperform Winsome Sears.
He apologized. He came out and did an on-camera apology. He continued to campaign, saying it was, he was joking and moved on. But he was asked about it every stop, every interview he did. Abigail Spanberger was asked about it a lot of interviews. And yet, here you have it. I think it does show, to your point earlier, that Virginia is trending more blue than purplish right now. And does that have to do with the government shutdown? Does that have to do with all the government workers in Fairfax County? Does it have to do with a shift that we're seeing there? I don't know. Yeah. But President Trump's not on the ballot, and President Trump made Virginia very tight in 2024.
One of my criticisms after 24, the Democrats, there was no introspection. There was no self-reflection. There was no course correction, as I say. I do see things that Republicans can learn from tonight, even though we're talking about, in my view, 3 very blue states. And I think the one big thing that pops off the page to me, Martha, is the economy. And I know the president has been doing any and everything, a very heavy lift on foreign policy. He laid the foundation for his economic success. He has his plan in place, but there is a lag period between putting that in place and actually seeing the growth that you want and are predicting that I believe will occur. I would like to see more talk about the economy moving forward from Republicans. I take it out of the exit polling. What do you take?
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And, this idea of affordability, which just basically means inflation, that prices are too high, and that's a real sensitivity spot for people, is, I think, something that Republicans do have to look carefully at. It's obvious that they're very aware of it. I saw James Blair today on with Larry Kudlow talking about how he believes that what they're seeing in the future indicator economic numbers are very positive. Scott Bessent has implied the same thing. So obviously, before you get to the midterms, Republicans are going to want to work on making sure that that is tangible, that, that people feel that increase. And I think, if the economy is stupid, ends up being the simple story of a lot of elections. And I think that's clearly one of the lines here.
Brett, to add a little context to that, we have trillions in committed monies that the president has secured for manufacturing, and add to that bonus depreciation, which would incentivize companies to build faster. That would include automobiles, pharmaceuticals, that would include rare earth, and also semiconductor chips and things like that. Also, the largest tax cut in history. Reagan did it. We had 21 million new jobs created, massive economic growth, the longest period of peacetime economic growth in history to that point. And then you add the energy component, which I don't think you can fully calculate. So there are building blocks in place, I believe, for great economic growth. How soon will we see it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, the projection by Bessent and others is you get to first quarter 26 and you start to feel it. But there is this disparity. Big companies are doing great. If you look at Wall Street, they had some great runs there over the past few weeks, and the highest ever. But the disparity of feeling it in the lower section, in the folks who, don't have a lot in the stock market or any, there is, a push and pull of affordability and paying for things that has not equaled out. The tariff thing is a big part of the president's policies, which is why this hearing at the Supreme Court tomorrow, the beginning of this emergency decision that they're going to make on tariffs, is going to be really crucial.
All right, now, just for our audience knowledge, you guys will be taking over at 10 p.m. Eastern. That's 8 minutes from right now. Brett and Martha, we have yet to hear from any of the candidates on either side. I'm sure you'll be carrying those speeches tonight. I want to thank both of you for joining us tonight, and we'll be watching your coverage all throughout the night. Here with reaction to all of tonight's results, pollsters Matt Towery, Robert Cahaly. Well, I got to tip my hat to you. Both of you in your last poll showed the bottom dropped out for Winsome Sears. I believe it had a major impact on the AG race there. Matt Towery, what happened?
Well, it's bigger than that. I'm going to go very quickly because I know that we don't have much time. Shut down, shut down, shut down. That had a big effect on this election. We saw many Republicans start to go down as the weeks continued to go with the shutdown. Tomorrow, the legacy media is going to say it's Donald Trump. It's all his trouble. It's not. It was a shutdown. Number two, Republicans have to figure out how to get the vote out. I agree with Kellyanne. In Georgia today, you had two statewide elected officials, Republicans, defeated at a massive level. No one's looking at it, but the GOP has to figure out how to turn out races without Donald Trump on the ballot.
I think that's well said. Robert, let's get your take. Would you ever imagine Zohran Mamdani winning with his radical positions in New York City?
A simple answer to that is yes. It's New York City. But I agree with Matt.
That's true.
Shutdown is everything. I mean, you know, when you have a country
Robert,
with
let me stop
so
you. Are
many
you talking
people,
about when you say shutdown, are you specifically really referring to Virginia, considering in Northern Virginia so many people were impacted by this government shutdown? And why didn't they blame Schumer? Because I would argue he shut it down.
Well, absolutely. But here's the thing. You've got so many people who depend on the government for either aid or a paycheck. And when that is stopped, they're going to blame the party in power. And when Republicans have the House, the Senate, and the President, they don't understand all the details of filibuster. I mean, they understand the Republicans are in control, and that check's in jeopardy. And so when that check is in jeopardy, when that aid is in jeopardy, whether it's actually in jeopardy or they just perceive it's in jeopardy, they're going to vote their pocketbook, even if they ideologically feel a different way. That's what they were talking about earlier. Kellyanne said that all these numbers said they were going to vote one way based on how they felt about issues like crime, but they voted the other way. I think people are voting their pocketbooks, and Trump was right. The shutdown needed to end, and filibuster, whatever it took. Nuclear option, it's got to stop.
Well, I hope for the sake of people, especially if they're going to lose SNAP benefits, I don't want to come on the air and have to beg people to go to their local food bank, and that may be next. Thank you both.
Fox News alert, it's 8 o'clock and polls have closed in New Jersey. The Fox News decision desk believes the governor's race in the Garden State is close. Democratic candidate Mikey Sherrill leads. The Fox News decision desk can also project that Democrat Abigail Spanberger will become the next governor of Virginia. Spanberger defeats Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears. Let's bring in Fox News chief political anchor Bret Baier and the anchor of The Story, Martha McCallum. Were you surprised, Bret, that was called early?
No, you know, it's a purple state, but it's bluish purple. Winsome Earl Sears did close the gap heading into Election Day, but, you know, there was a Democratic push. She was a decent candidate to begin with. She had some stumbles because of the Attorney General's race, which, by the way, we haven't called yet, Jay Jones, although he is seeing increase in the polls, the numbers that we're seeing. But because of that, I think there was a stumble and a belief that Winsome Earl Sears could close the gap. Too little, too late. And Abigail Spanberger will become the first female governor of the Commonwealth. She was the person that Democrats said, listen, this is a moderate. She's going to be the example for Democrats going forward. Republicans said she wasn't a moderate. She voted with Nancy Pelosi almost all the time. And but she will become the next Virginia governor.
But this race for AG, where the guy says that he wanted to kill Republican kids, we can't call that yet. Are you surprised that we haven't been able to call that yet? I mean, most people that I know would say, heck no with a guy like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a percentage of Virginia voters who said that they found those comments concerning, but not disqualifying. And we saw that Spanberger really tried to just sort of sidestep this whole issue. She was pressed upon to say that he should drop out of the race. I mean, it really lowers the bar for what is required. I mean, think about the fact that Joe Biden once dropped out of a presidential race because there was some plagiarism in a speech that he gave. But this guy says that, you know, this family should be killed, and that the children are fascists and they should be killed too. But, you know, the bar for all these things has changed
dramatically. And the guy with the Nazi tattoo hasn't dropped out.
You know,
the bar is so low now, you can basically do anything and stay in the race.
She was asked about 4 times in that debate, will you pull your endorsement? She didn't. And it was the easiest, one would think, layup to, in a political race, say, yes, I pull my endorsement. It's time to move on. But she was you know, it was like an albatross around her neck for the rest of that race, and that's why it was so close in the end. She is going to pull this out in a decent majority, margin rather, and Democrats are going to feel good about this. I think they have less to feel good about in New Jersey, which looks like it's tightening.
All right, so it's tight in New Jersey. This is a state that Harris, I think, beat Donald Trump by about 6 points. He didn't spend any money there. And this guy, Ciattarelli, had done well last time against the incumbent, Bill Murphy. It's too close to call. What does that tell you?
Well, this is the third time that Jack Ciattarelli has run for governor. The first time he didn't make it through the primary. The second time, as you pointed out, he came within 3 points of Phil Murphy. Nobody has held the same party governorship in New Jersey since 1961, which would indicate, you know, the historical trend is that it's time for it to flip to the GOP this time around. We've certainly had a number of Republican governors in New Jersey, but this is very close. And Cheryl, you know, also weathered a bit of a storm when it came to the cheating scandal at Annapolis. Ciattarelli really tried to hang that on her in a negative light. Whether or not it stuck, we don't know yet.
And the insider trading allegations, too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wasn't very graceful in wiggling out of those. What are your people in New Jersey telling us, Martha?
Our people in New Jersey. You know, I mean, I do sort of, you know, I go running around town. I see where the signs are. It is interesting in areas that are, you know, sort of working class neighborhoods in New Jersey. You have seen a lot of Ciattarelli signs. It has felt that he had the momentum, but whether or not, you know, the New Jersey machine will prevail tonight, that's what we're about to find out.
And we had Barack Obama had to fly in all the way from Hawaii to save both of these women.
That's right. He went to Virginia and to New Jersey. He did not go to New York City.
But he did make a phone call.
He did make a phone call, said he was really, you know, touching on important issues, but didn't do an official endorsement. I think, obviously, the big race that has sucked up all the oxygen is the mayor's race here in New York City. And that could maybe have an effect in New Jersey because people in New Jersey look at New York City and say what happens there could mean something for us.
Do you really think that if Mamdani wins, that it could have repercussions in New Jersey, Martha? You know New Jersey better than any of us here at this table.
It's true.
Well, we both live there, but you know, you and I both live there.
I was born there. I just want to say.
Okay, good.
He's also
Jersey strong.
Jersey roots as well. You know, it's interesting to see if you get a counterbalance vote. If people in New Jersey sort of turn out to try to balance Mamdani in the mayor's race. I also think that the other person who's watching this very closely is Elise Stefanik, because I think if Mamdani wins in New York, she may feel, you know, Hochul wants to be governor, to stay governor there, but Mamdani didn't even endorse Hochul.
Right.
She endorsed him, and he won't endorse her because she refuses to raise taxes in this state, which is going to be a problem for
So
him.
we're not giving Mamdani the win, but if he does win, Brett, what kind of damage, if he teams up with Kathy Hochul, could those two do in the state of New York?
So interestingly, the New York City mayor doesn't have as much power as the New York governor.
Right.
So she would almost be a check if she wanted to be to the New York City mayor.
Does she want to be?
You know, when she was on that stage, it didn't look like it when she was holding up his hand, but she has said to other people and reporters that that's what she would do. It's not good enough. If he does win, and we don't know, I mean, who knows? Those polls close at 9 p.m. We'll see. It's the biggest turnout we've seen in 2 decades in New York City for a mayor's race. So, you know, that could mean good things for Cuomo. But if he wins, Hochul will be in a much weakened position against the Republican nominee, likely Stefanik.
And are you thinking people in New York City are calculating this? Well, I don't like Cuomo, but I might have to vote for him to stop Mamdani. How much of that calculation is happening?
Well, I think one of the biggest questions is that percentage of Sliwa voters, because Trump came out and said, look, you know, I don't really like either of these main candidates, but if you should go for the worst Democrat rather than the communist, is what the president said. So those Sliwa voters had to make a decision today when they went to the polls and figure out if they wanted to pull the lever for Sliwa or if they were going to go over and do what the president asked them to do and vote for Cuomo. So watch the Sliwa margins. Staten Island is obviously a big the only big conservative stronghold in New York City. If his margins are lower there than they were last time around, that's something to keep an eye on.
Does the pseudo endorsement by Donald Trump of Andrew Cuomo help Andrew Cuomo in a city like New York where they just tried to throw this president in prison? You know, this guy's like, oh, this is your guy. And then Mamdani says, well, look, Donald Trump's endorsing my opponent.
Yeah, it did give Mamdani a talking point ahead of Election Day, but it also may move some Sliwa voters off to vote for Cuomo. So the balance there is interesting to factor in. I think it was late. You know, it might have been earlier. Cuomo had to absorb a day of, look, he's Donald Trump's endorsed candidate. But at the same time, it probably moves some Sliwa voters.
All right, we'll see how it shakes out pretty soon. The Fox News decision desk can now project the Democratic state senator, Ghazala Hashmi, will serve as Virginia's next lieutenant governor. Hashmi will be the first ever Muslim woman elected to statewide office. She defeats Republican John Reed.
Here with more on all the news that's been breaking. Fox News contributors Ari Fleischer, Kellyanne Conway. All right, Kellyanne, let's get your take on this. No surprise, really, to me anywhere. I'm not really surprised. I had hopes for New Jersey. It was a hope. There was a shot. There was a chance. But the math was the math. And I knew that going in. 250,000 people left in 3 years. Nearly 1 million vote advantage for Democrats, registered over Republicans. So I was realistic as well.
No doubt. This is what happened when Democrats turn out to vote in largely Democratic blue states, and that's what happened. The one curious thing, though, Sean and Ari, is that the voters told pollsters they want lower taxes, fewer regulations, less crime, less chaos with respect to migration. They want to make sure that the police are respected and that their values are reflected. And then they went and voted against all of that today in the form of these governors. Look, Jack Ciattarelli, we were all very hopeful, but guess what? The Fox News voter analysis suggests that he failed to win young men and to replicate what President Trump did one short year ago with Hispanics, with union households, with independents. So to the extent that tonight is a referendum on President Trump at all, guess what? It means that he's one of one. You can get his endorsement, and this is a clarion call for 2026, folks. You can have President Trump's endorsement. It doesn't mean you're going to win. You have to do what he did. You have to go and dip into these unfamiliar to Republican constituencies. You've got to be very specific and granular and show up every single moment. One quick point about Virginia. Spanberger's margin of victory is so large, Sean, that she brought over that Jay Jones character to be the chief law enforcement officer of Virginia. He barely won. He won by a far smaller margin than she did. She dragged him over, and now he should be a drag on her. Because, my goodness, we've got a socialist, anti-Semite, pro-Hamas guy as mayor of New York and the chief law enforcement officer in Virginia in the age of political assassination attempts and successful attempts. We have a man who has threatened the lives of other people. I think that's one of the biggest stories of the night to me, and I also think that Republicans got to do what they did in 2024 with President Trump, get that vote out early, swamp the vote. Look, for me, early voting is 7 a.m. on Election Day, but early vote is a real thing now, and we have to step it up and participate the same way the Democrats do.
Ari Fleischer, let's get your take on tonight.
Well, blue states are blue states, and that's why the Democrats won tonight. But if you take a step back, Republicans in 2022 took the House of Representatives. There was no red wave, but they took the House. 2024, they took the White House. They took the Senate. I would rather be the Republicans in having done that than the Democrats in 2025 who kept some blue governor's mansions. Looking ahead to the future, the Democrats have a horrible problem now on their hands, and his name is Zohran Mamdani. Mamdani will be the middle name of every Democrat running in every race around the country. And the socialist win tonight is not over. There's a race in Minnesota right now where a socialist may beat the incumbent Democratic senator of Minneapolis. Keep your eye on that race. Socialism is a growing problem for the Democratic Party. And the more the Democrats embrace socialism with all the horrors that it entails, the crime that'll take place in New York City, the abandonment of New York City by the successful and the taxpayer, this is what's going to hurt the Democratic reputation and base going forward. It's hollowing out the Democratic Party. I would so much rather, even with tonight's bad results, be the Republicans in the big picture than the Democrats. There's also, I just want to add, a race in Maine we should pay attention to tonight. It's a ballot initiative to see if voters in Maine want to mandate driver's licenses in order to vote. That looks like it's going to pass. So outside of the bigger races here, Pay attention to Minneapolis. Pay attention to that ballot initiative in Maine. But it's a tough night for Republicans. But it sets up 26. Republicans are running against socialism.
I actually think I'd take that battle, that ideological battle, any day of the week, to be very honest, Ari. But Ari Fleischer, Kellyanne, great to see you both. Thank you both for joining us. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.